All right, all right. 1, 2, 3. He's coming! He's coming! I know that's cheesy. I just felt like we had to do it because 1/3 of this movie is Johnny Depp's daughter just writhing in a bed saying a man is coming.
Well, he did come.
Okay. Anyway, what's good, everybody? We are back. Simon Hill with my beautiful, sexy wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi, everyone. It's Akdi. I know it's been a long time. I know you missed us.
Yes. We have been on a extended vacation in America and just spending this past week in Budapest readjusting. How did you enjoy your trip to America? We should talk about that more in another live stream or podcast. But
yeah, I enjoyed it. It was definitely a different experience, and in our relationship, or just I guess the past few years, we've been talking a lot about America. Mm-hmm. And then to go there and actually see everything we've been talking about was very, I don't know, it helped me realize certain things.
Yeah. You realize how messed up I am by where I come from.
No, I don't think you're messed up, but I just, all those social things that we talked about, I saw it. Okay. And it sort of made me, I don't think I would be able to live in United States of America.
Yeah, me too, girl. But We'll save all that for some other commentary, some other time. We are doing a movie review. I forgot what number this is. I should have checked it beforehand. Forgive me, I'm a bit rusty. We haven't done this in about 3 weeks or so. But we are reviewing a new film. This is Nosferatu. And this is a gothic horror film that came out in 2024, directed by Robert Eggers. And it stars many stars: Lily Rose Depp, the daughter of Johnny Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu.
Why do you say her name like that? Like you hate her?
I don't hate her. I don't have any problem with her. In fact, I think she actually acted pretty well in this film. This is the first thing I've seen her in. Have you seen her in anything else?
I saw that series that they try to make with The Weeknd.
She's in that? Yeah. That horrible show?
Yeah, and the show was horrible, so I thought, okay, she's kind of horrible. But honestly, with this movie, I liked her acting.
Okay.
Yeah, she was good.
Yeah. The other guys here, Nicholas Hoult, who plays Thomas, her husband, average white guy to me. He looked like Benedict Cumberbatch. In fact, I was saying that the entire time. You could drop 5 different white leading men in front of me, and I just say they are all essentially, Brad Pitt. I cannot tell the difference. They're all Chris Pratt to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's just how I am. They all look alike.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen him in some movie. I don't really remember, but I agree. He's, a regular white guy, and he did okay. Yeah. I guess. I think the role that needed more acting skills was Nosferatu's character.
No. Well, we might disagree on that, but we'll talk about that some more. Okay. Interesting. But let's break this film down just essentially real quick. So this is a remake of a classic 1922 silent horror film, which was a very inventive film for its time. The use of shadows, the character of Dracula being on screen. Nosferatu is one of those seminal films in history where even if you haven't seen it, certain cultural things, like the use of the hands like this and pulling your eyes back, to look like a vampire. It's just one of those, cultural paramounts in cinema history. And I've never seen it. Have you?
No.
Yeah, but this is a great film to remake, but they also need to start remaking some other films from the 1920s if we're going there. We need a remake of Birth of a Nation. We need the Klan just riding around lynching black folks. We need to remake Gone with the Wind and just have all black casts but enslaving white folks, a big fat white woman as Mammy. That's what we need to, you know what I mean? That's what we need.
Okay.
I'm joking.
I can see that.
The acting's just if you could see her right now, she's what is this guy going on? But I like they say like Hollywood has just been remaking the same films over and over again. Like everything is a reboot, a sequel, a trilogy. A new Spider-Man pops up every 7 years essentially. But I actually like this rebirth of this franchise because I think the best thing about this film is like Nosferatu himself, and I guess we could talk about that. I feel like Bill Skarsgård did an excellent job portraying this evil villainous character, and Robert Eggers did a great job making this character that wouldn't be scary to us if we saw the old 1922 film like scary today. You know what I mean? There's parts of this film where Nosferatu's energy is just menacing, But what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Like, for the most part of the film, it is about his energy because we don't even see his face. We just see, like, his nails and his shadows and his, outfits, I guess, which is, like, just a long dress, essentially. And
Gowns.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. But, like, the accent and the way, like, Nosferatu talked, I thought it was just like interesting, He has that type of accent that makes you want to like just listen to what he will say. Plus he's like creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But you said you didn't like his acting.
I said I liked his acting.
Oh, I thought you said you didn't like it.
No, I said that I think his character requires a lot of acting skills. So I agree with you on that. He was good. I didn't say I
didn't like it?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll hear that on the playback. Maybe I didn't hear that. But, all right, we'll hear it on the playback. We'll check.
You got excited that we're going to fight.
No, I got excited that, we're going to actually talk about this movie. And my first impression after watching it, right? I watched it with you mostly until, like, you fell asleep, and then I finished it by myself. I would say that the beginning of this film is good, especially the parts when like Thomas first meets Nosferatu and goes to the castle, and that interaction between them is just so intense and scary, and just you feel that pressure. Towards the middle, it was a bit iffy for me until like maybe the last 20 minutes of the film. It absolutely is fire, right? After I watched it though, it didn't make me want to do like research about the story or the themes or other people's interpretation, because I feel like I'm pretty good at picking up on themes, and I didn't feel like there were that many. But I did have to look up who the director was, because I didn't put these two things together in my mind until I saw Robert Eggers in his filmography. And he made other films like The Lighthouse, which I haven't seen, and other stuff. But he made The Northman, which is this Viking film that came out a few years ago. I watched it when we were in Kenya, and then I was like, now it all makes sense. Like, The Northman is one of those films you watch and you remember because, like, oh, there's Vikings and there's, like, rape and, like, beheadings and stuff like that. But you also say, what the fuck was that about? And you get what I'm saying? And that's how I felt about Nosferatu. Like, I felt like I just saw something that was, like, visually stunning, but without any sort of, like, deeper... It's not surface level, but it's still shallow, I would say. But what did you think after you watched it?
I mean, I kind of got into this movie with, like, judgment because, okay, like, Lily Rose Depp, and then up until to the scene where he goes to the castle of Nosferatu, I was like, oh, okay, this is, like, giving me old, vintage, like, possessed soul vibes. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it because I don't think it's that different. But I liked it after that part, after, like, we meet Nosferatu face-to-face finally. And for me, I think, like, these type of classical stories become what you make of them. So I feel like, you have maybe something that they represent. And I didn't really have a representation of Dracula or vampire stories, but this movie made me really, like, relate the, events that happened to Lily Rose Depp's character and, like, women who experienced trauma
right.
because of men. I don't know. That's just something that I like related in my mind, and maybe that's not even what it's about.
Right. I definitely can see that when we start talking about the story, that theme is definitely there. I just feel like it's barely touched on so much that it makes it almost inconsequential. It makes it almost nil to say that that's the point of the story, in my opinion. Right? Because I could think of other movies that we've watched that talk about, like Desert Rose. Mm-hmm. Desert Rose is a better story about, women and abuse and like trauma and dealing with that, right, than this movie is, even though it's supposed to be an allegory.
Yeah, I mean, those movies like Desert Rose is more like on the nose because it's a true story that happened, and obviously it has like a more realistic effect on you. Mm-hmm. But I feel like because I picked this theme up in the middle of the movie, after that point, like everything that happened, I sort of saw, that theme in every scene or every line. Okay. So for me, it made sense. Yeah. Maybe for some other person, we were reading the Letterboxd comments, and for some people, it's like a situationship themed movie and stuff like that.
I think those people are just being silly, though. Like, everybody on LGBT Letterboxd is just trying to get the hottest takeout.
Okay. But anyway, yeah, I think like you can interpret the theme as you want because it's that classic,
that story
script. Yeah.
Right. I mean, vampires as characters can be interpreted in so many ways. Like, zombies are supposed to represent consumerism. What if we get to the point where we can't buy? What if we really want to consume each other? You know what I mean? Like, vampires can also represent something like that. To some degree, like the haunting spirit that wants to consume you, or the desire to consume, immortality, right? The fear of death. I mean, there's so many things like vampires could represent. I never thought about them that deeply because I always associate vampires now with Team Edward or Team Jacob, or you know what I mean? Like, vampires in my generation aren't that scary. Like with Sabrina the Teenage Witch and shit like that. And like, I think the coolest thing maybe of vampires is maybe like Blade, the vampire slayer, and he's killing vampires. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought of vampires that deeply either until I watched this movie. Mm-hmm. So that's why I actually enjoyed this movie. Right. Because it made me think a bit more thematically about like the whole Dracula story.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, let's talk about this story. So essentially, like, the movie opens up with this girl named Ellen. She's at some grand house somewhere in the countryside, and she's calling out the window for someone to come to her and be with her. And essentially, she ends up laying down in the grass outside of this house and having sex with what looks like a demon, but we don't see the demon actually, right? Maybe the demon isn't actually having sex with her. Maybe it's biting her. Like, the scene cuts off very quick when that interaction happens. We then go now to Ellen's present. She sort of like wakes up. It's like a dream almost, that first scene. And she's living now with her husband, whose name is Thomas. And Thomas is like this young guy. I guess they recently got married, and they're about to go on their honeymoon. But Thomas goes to the office one day, and his boss tells him, I have a mission for you. You need to go all the way to this far off country to sell this old rich man a house in Germany. Right? And Thomas is like, but I just got married. And his boss is like, shut up, you're going to do this job. And so Thomas goes back and talks to his wife, Ellen, and says, I got to do this, babe, I'm sorry. And she's holding these flowers, and she says, why did you make these beautiful flowers die? And he says, who are you talking to? And she's like, nothing, you know what I mean? So it shows like Ellen is still communicating with this, demon that's in her mind or in her past. And there's also other scenes, too, where she seems to be talking to him off in the distance and stuff like that. Ellen is very sad, and she's, like, telling Thomas, don't go. But Thomas eventually, rides off to Romania from Germany in one scene. And but, yeah, what did you think about those opening parts?
Like I said, I had some judgments about the movie. Like, I didn't know who was in it before, or I didn't know really anything about it. But when I saw like Lily Rose Depp, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. But I mean, It was interesting. I like that it kind of moved fast and got to the point where Thomas was going to Transylvania or Romania. And I thought, like, the whole scenery was nice, like gothic, like how the movie is described. And throughout the movie, I appreciate this, like, even though it's a very dark movie, like literally a dark movie in terms of color themes, it is, like, very well seen. Like, you can't see everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like they did they reflected the century well.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I mean, you know, I think I said something like, this is a stereotypical, like, modern horror film just shot in the style of Bridgerton. You know, like, it's essentially the same idea. I'm going to go off to this house in the woods in a faraway place, but I'm speaking an 18th century British accent, Old English, and I'm wearing, like, 3 layers of clothing and knickers and heels. You know what I'm saying? Like, so one thing that I knew I didn't like about this film at the very beginning with that first scene with Ellen was the fucking jump scares. In this movie, I feel like fails at being truly horrifying by relying on too many jump scares. Like, there are scenes in this film, like, where you know it's coming, and if you're not that type of person who likes jump scares, I think you might be annoyed by this film. You know what I mean?
I like jump scares.
Okay.
So I don't have any problems with them. I think it builds up the tension. So I didn't mind all the jump scares because I'm, like, waiting for it, so I know it's gonna happen, so it's not gonna be, like, that scary. But, yeah, it's still going to be, like, some flinching, you know?
Another thing that, you know, I have to say about the beginning is that, like, I had hope for this movie. I didn't go into it with any sort of, like, expectations. So, like, when they were setting it up with, like, Ellen communicating with, you know, obviously this vampire or demon that possessed her in that first scene, I was like, okay, is Ellen really in love with Thomas? Is she going to, like, use Thomas to, like, feed him to the vampire? Like, I didn't know what side Ella was on, so there was this level of suspense I had at the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, their power dynamic in the relationship, I feel like Ellen's character can bully Thomas sometimes, like, emotionally, and I don't know how realistic that is in, you know, 1830s Germany or 1830s world.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I guess, but I felt like her character actually loved her husband. It's just that she was, like, you know, struggling with psychological diseases. You know, if we just put it on, like, our current modern world.
Yeah. Well, yeah, she was dealing with trauma to some degree. And, you know, maybe Thomas likes a little toxic.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. They never explained really how they met. And I feel like that would be important because overall Thomas seems pretty normal and Ellen comes across immediately disturbed, like, as soon as you meet her. So they should have explained that. But essentially, you know, Thomas rides from what looks to be a port city in Germany to the Balkans in, like, literally one scene on horseback. You get what I'm saying? So there's this weird space and time problem that happens in this movie a lot. And yeah, he ends up going to this, like, hotel in the middle of nowhere in what looks like Transylvania. He shows up in this place where there's a bunch of, like, Romani people, like, dancing and, like, playing music and, like, greeting him as guests and, like, asking for money and stuff like that. And there's this woman who, like, does the limbo until, like, she falls out of scene. And, like, then there's what looks like Captain Jack Sparrow waiting at the front of the hotel just laughing. I felt like that was, like, David Eggers laughing at us. Like, laughing at the audience through that character. Like, you're really on this ride, aren't you? Like, you really are watching this shit, aren't you? When that guy was laughing. And Thomas is just, like, so confused. He walks into this Romani place. He only speaks English, even though he lives in Germany. And the guy is talking to him in Romanian, and he replies in English, and somehow they understand each other.
Yeah, that scene was a bit ridiculous. Like, it was a bit musical. It was a bit Broadway.
Yeah.
And there's, like, a random, like, Romani discrimination slur thrown out there.
Yeah, he says, "Get out of here, you dirty gypsies."
Yeah, like it's like, what is happening?
Yes.
Why did you put that there?
Yeah, I guess that was to make it like real for the time, because we're in Hungary and people talk like that now about Romani people.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the thing is though, like while you're watching this film, for me, I felt like I'm enjoying it, right? Like, but when I think about that scene now and talk about it, I felt like there was so much more that could have been done, because Thomas like walks into the inn and there's like this woman talking to him in like Romani, and she's like trying to warn him like the devil is going to come. Don't do this. Whatever you're doing, please turn back. He wakes up in the middle of the night to find the people, marching towards the grave of some vampire with a naked woman, virgin, I guess, on horseback. And they open up the casket and kill the thing. And then, Thomas is there and he says, "For the love of God." And he wakes up in his bed, like the next scene, with his boots dirty. So obviously he was out there. It was like, there was a moment there to make this film a bit deeper. Like maybe explore Thomas's view of religion and mysticism. Instead, they just sort of like make him stand there like some big goof, like, "Oh, what's happening?" Like, bro, like Keanu Reeves' face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, yes, I agree with you on that. Like, they could have explored Thomas's views more. I think they do a tiny, tiny bit later when he interacts with Nosferatu. But I feel like those scenes just gave the idea, for me at least, that, okay, like this society is a superstitious society. And they obviously fear this, spirit, monster, whatever it is, and they're trying to collectively like fight it.
Right.
And they have developed their like own, rituals for it, where they sacrifice a virgin on a horse.
I mean, you could have made, like, the film had the opportunity to make this point of like the old world versus like the new world. Like Thomas comes from this modern world, right? And he sort of goes back in time when he goes east to people with these old traditions. And later, the next scene, Thomas shows up at Count Orlok's, by the way, is the name of the guy he's going to meet, who is really Nosferatu, the vampire. He goes to Count Orlok's mansion, knocks on the door. The door sort of like opens up by itself. Count Orlok is in the distance in black saying, "Come, follow me." And like he's this heavy, brooding character marching up the stairs in this dark castle, dimly lit. And there's a scene when Thomas asks Count Orlok, "Why do you want to move to this old house in Germany when you're so rich and you can live anywhere?" And Count Orlok says, "I want to get away from these people with these old, mysterious, superstitious ways. And, don't ask about the people and what they do here, about opening corpses and these old traditions." You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, there was an opportunity there for the film to be about, people not being accepted because they come from backward societies, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't take that bait. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah, in general, Thomas is kind of like that, because he doesn't really accept the fact that his wife is like having these dreams and she's telling him like it's real, I can sense it, I can feel it. And he's like, don't mind those things attention. And I feel like maybe he feels the same way about like the Romanis that he sees. He's just saying to himself, okay, like these people are weird. But I feel like, the thing is like the scenes in Orlok's castle, there could have been more conversation between the two of them. Yeah. Where we can explore Thomas's ideas. Yeah. More. But it's like Thomas was so scared. Yeah. At that time, like he can hardly talk. He
can hardly say anything. But speaking about that, when he walks into Orlok's castle, what did you think of those first scenes with Orlok when he's like appearing in random places, like offering him a glass and like popping up in the next corner, and like Thomas is going to like the fireplace and the mantle, like the statue next to the fireplace turns its head. Like, what did you think of all of that?
It reminded me of of a job I did and like the client I saw for that job.
Okay.
Because like there are those people that you have to maybe interact with or sell things with. Maybe they're your boss that just have scary energy.
Oh yeah.
And like everyone around them also feels scared as well. So it reminded me of like that guy that I met once. So I was like able to sympathize with Thomas because I was thinking, just get the job done. Just get the job done,
Don't get eaten.
Yeah. So, I liked also Nosferatu's like wheezing in the background and, his accent. I thought those were good but creepy additions to the whole vibe of him.
Yeah. He speaks like a man that smoked American spirits every day, every hour for every year of his life.
Yeah.
Like,
and he's like 1,000 years old.
And he's 1,000 years old. Imagine being a smoking vampire.
I mean, you can't die, so you can literally do anything.
You can't die, but you can get leukemia and you can get throat cancer. Like a situation like that film, Death Becomes Her. Like, you don't die, but shit still happens.
Can vampires get cancer, though?
I don't know. It seems like it. Or like he looked like it. But I really like those scenes, right? Because they put him in the shadows, right? So even though the villain is very present right in front of you, throughout the film, right, they still hide him and they provide him some mystique and mystery. So that's the great part. And the deep voice they give him, the modulation, we were watching this film and listening to it like on Bluetooth speakers, but it still like resonated throughout the room, like when he was speaking. That was so cool.
Yeah, and that's why I said like the wheezing was very cool because even when he wasn't speaking, you can hear him breathing.
Yeah.
And it's like scary.
Yeah. Another thing I have to say is like also the environment as well. Like Romania has to be like top 10 scariest countries that exist just off reputation alone. Like there's Somalia, there's North Korea, and then there's Romania just for like, Vlad the Impaler, Dracula, fucking like brutality that happened in like World War II and like Ottoman invasions. Romania scares the shit out of me, bruh. And especially when in this film they transition between the different languages and the way the Romanian sounds, like it's pretty damn terrifying.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, in this movie, it looks very terrifying.
At least when Nosferatu speaks it.
That, and also like when Thomas was coming to the castle, like they show the road and there are like wolves chasing his carriage.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So, yeah, it does definitely have that creepy vibe. I don't know if they shot this in actual, like, Romania.
I wonder if they did.
But it definitely looks like it.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't, I mean, they did a good job, pretending it was Transylvania.
Was Thomas, I think another thing that was missed here in this part of the film is Thomas giving some reason why he stays in the house, because you and I were watching this film and we were like, get out, get out. I think this is a film even white folks will watch and say, get out, get out. You know what I mean?
Like, I think we know the reason.
I think we could assume it's because Thomas loves money or he's just trying to get the job done. But like, there could have been a point when he like woke up the next day and said like, I'm going to get this job done. I need the money. I want the money. I want to be rich. You know what I mean? I would have written in those, dialogues for Thomas if it was me. You know what I mean? And also I would have had Thomas and Nosferatu not just have that first scary interaction, but sort of like a bonding thing too. Because the thing about vampires is that they're scary, but also seductive, right? So I would have had Nosferatu make Thomas laugh. You know what I mean? Like I would have Nosferatu say, "You're scared, aren't you?" You know what I mean? And like they end up bonding over not liking old traditional ways of thinking. You know what I mean? I would have had them do that, but I don't know. Any comments?
I mean, I think there was a little bit of that, like when he said, oh, those like silly people that believe in mysterious things.
Yeah.
And you're a modern man. I'm sure this is stupid for you.
Yeah.
Like when he said that, there was a little bit of that, but not that much. And maybe I think also, like you said, it would have been cool to see Thomas in his like chambers in his room, thinking to himself, stressing to himself, about the job. Yeah. But I don't think it wasn't necessarily he stayed there because he loved money, but just because he wanted a good future for like his family.
Yeah.
You know, and actually his wife said, like, you don't have to go. I don't want all this money. I don't want material things. I just want you to be safe and I to be safe. So I feel like that's relatable today. And that's gonna, you know, combine with my theories later.
Okay.
But, you know, he's a man that thinks maybe his woman only likes him just for, like, what he has.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, if you have a grand theory for this film, let's not spend too much on the story. Basically, you know, we skipped over a few things. Like, Thomas has his friend who he ends up leaving his wife with. So Ellen ends up staying with his homie. I forgot his name. His name is...
Frederick Harding.
Yeah, Frederick Harding. Yeah. He ends up staying with his friend. Ellen ends up staying with Frederick Harding, who's Thomas's friend, and also Harding's wife is, you know, Anna is also Ellen's close friend too as well. And so Ellen and Anna are like bonding, and Ellen is talking about how she feels like this great force is coming to her, and Harding is like very horny for his wife Anna. Like every time we see Harding talk about his wife, he's like, bruh, I can't get enough of her.
They're like pregnant with their third child.
Yeah, like he keeps her barefoot and no, not barefoot, because she has to wear like 3 layers, you know, of clothing. But he's getting under all those layers every now and then.
Well, I mean, it's crazy because these two guys, you know, Thomas and Frederick, they're like the best husbands of 1830s.
Yeah, no like slapping wives. They love their wives. They're not cheating.
Yeah, they're like a family man. I don't know. They're good to their kids.
Not explicitly sexist.
Kind of sexist only for their wives, you know?
Okay.
Like, oh, you are mine. Like, I want to tear your clothes off.
Yeah, okay.
Type of sexist.
Yeah, okay.
I get it.
That's what you noticed? I didn't think about that.
I thought about that because this is like an old time movie.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be in the old times.
Yeah.
So I feel like at these times, you know, women were raped all the time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So... And also, like, when Ellen talks about her past and her dad, I guess, a little bit. Yeah, I felt like these are, like, the best families ever.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see that. Do you think there was any reason Harding had girls? Like daughters in the film? Like, if that was supposed to mean something, if anything, because when we first see his daughters are screaming, like, Daddy, don't let us go to sleep. There's a monster in the room. And he keeps on telling them, like, just be quiet. Like, oh, little darling, you know.
I mean, it could have been, like, a hint to Ellen's childhood, maybe. Because kids say stuff like that, right? Almost every kid says, I'm scared. I'm scared of the dark. I'm scared of the monster under my bed. But I guess in Ellen's case, it was actually true. But her family didn't really believe her, possibly. Yeah. Like the way, you know, Frederick didn't believe his daughters because he knew that, you know, they are just kids. And it's like their imagination.
Yeah. You know, that scene made me think about that film we watched, The Treatment. Remember that? And how the kids in that movie said, there's a troll in the neighborhood. And the parents said, oh, shut up. Yeah. You know what I mean? But really, it was a pedophile, like, creeping into, like, houses and, you know, kidnapping kids. So, yeah, I think maybe, you know, you could look at parts of this film and say, you know, there's this disbelief we have with our daughters and young girls when they're being abused. We ignore it or we don't want to believe it if we acknowledge it. So... There's that minor theme. Yeah. Essentially, Thomas, meanwhile, is still in, Count Orlok's house pissing on himself every time he talks to him.
Someone said this is just a movie about Nicholas Hoult sweating constantly because in every scene he's so scared that he's sweaty.
Yeah, like half of the movie is like his collar just getting drenched. Like, yeah absolutely. So basically, you know, the next day he wakes up and he stays the whole day at the house with Count Orlok, and he has to sign the deed for this new house that Count Orlok wants to buy in Germany. company. But when he goes to sign it, it's written in this old ancient language that he doesn't understand. And he's so scared that he ends up, signing it anyway. Also, Count Orlok, takes this, ring that he got from Ellen and doesn't give it back, essentially walks away. And, Thomas is too pussy to ask for it back.
Would you ask for it back though?
We can get another ring, right?
Yeah.
we can get another one. So, but, that's essentially what happens. And Thomas is begging to leave, but Orlok is not letting him leave. And so, the middle of the night, Thomas wakes up and he's trying to get out of the house. He goes down to the gate and the gate is locked. He goes down this other passageway that leads downstairs into some scary dungeon room. He opens up this tomb he finds and sees Count Orlok sleeping in there dead as a rock during the day. And he gets absolutely paranoid and starts sweating some more. What did you think about any of those scenes?
I was very mad at Thomas for not asking for a translation. I know he was scared, but it's bro, the only reason you're there is to be a businessman.
Yeah. But it's 1825, not 2025. No Google Translate.
I guess it's bureaucracy is not that important. But it's come on. I feel you have to at least ask the title or something. So I was kind of mad at him for doing that. And I don't know, I was just thinking same as you, why is he staying in this castle?
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah. I really like the scene though when he goes downstairs and finds him in that coffin, because once again they make this movie really true to that vampire aesthetic. I just I like certain things about vampires, the fucking sleeping in coffins and turning into bats. But also in this film, they do something different. Nosferatu doesn't turn into a bat, which we think of as vampires. He turns into a rat and a shadow and a creeping hand. And all the different ways Nosferatu transforms and stuff. I like that. And the wolves too. I tend to think sometimes the wolves are a part of his transformation too. And the wolves are chasing Thomas later in the film. I like that.
Yeah, which is weird because wolves are supposed to be werewolves, right? And werewolves or vampires are enemies.
Well, that's that Twilight.
Do you think
thing.
so?
Yeah.
No, I mean I feel in other movies also
there's that movie Underworld where vampires, I think they call it lichens or something, fight these werewolf type creatures. I mean, there's that franchise as well. But I remember reading Bram Stoker's Dracula when I was a kid, a long time ago. It's a decent book. It's okay. I wasn't enthralled with it, but I read it. And I was in that book, I remember Dracula turns into different things. He can turn into a bat if he wants to, but he can also turn into a rat. He can turn into just a mist. He can appear. You know what I mean? So. Okay.
And also, I think the way he's in this castle, it's almost like a dream or a lucid dream, right? Because at night he's interacting with Nosferatu and then he wakes up without remembering what happened the rest of the night. And then he finds these bites in his chest. But then also he goes to look for Count Orlok and he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So during the day he's just wandering around the castle alone, being creeped out by himself.
Yeah. There is also a scene too where Nosferatu creeps into his bed and bites into his chest and it's almost sexual. Every time somebody gets bit in this film, there's a lot of sensuality associated with it. You know what I mean? What did you think about that? Also including that for Thomas, because I guess it's understandable for Ellen, but why do you think Thomas also had a moment?
That scene reminded me of Rocky Horror Show. And because in the show, Rocky Horror is a transvestite, right? And he makes love both to the man and the wife. So it sort of, reminded me of that. And I think that character is also inspired by Dracula. So maybe we can say Dracula is actually bisexual.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he does love Ellen, but it seems like, if you got blood, he's got love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he'll suck anything.
It's more like an energy thing.
Yeah, it's about
like
vibes.
Tantric.
Yeah, it's tantric, it's vibes. It's all about, if I'm feeling you, man, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. So, yeah, man, essentially, Thomas decides to grow one ball and decides he's going to kill Nosferatu. So he runs back into the tomb where he found him sleeping, and he does what he saw the Romanis do earlier by throwing a, axe into the heart of this vampire, hopefully to kill it. But one of the best scenes, honestly one of my favorite scenes is like you can see the sun setting. And when the sun finally sets, he does that swing on Nosferatu, and Nosferatu wakes up and screams and throws the axe away and stands up, and we see his very tiny micro penis. I like that part that they show Nosferatu as a little dick. So your girl can't get wet after the film. Some women will lust for Nosferatu, but not after that scene.
I don't know if women will be lusting after Nosferatu.
There are some very toxic women out there who like, some women like ugly dudes.
Okay. I mean, no, I get that, but Nosferatu is something else.
I mean, he's granddaddy. Oh, granddaddy, you're so big.
Because I feel like when, in my idea, if it's an ugly guy, then it has to have a good dick.
Okay, well.
Anyway.
He can make you levitate. He can hit it in the air.
Wow.
He can flip you around with his fingers, and he can do all sorts of backflips.
That's funny. But I also very much like that scene you just talked about.
Yeah.
And, there were a lot of comments on Letterboxd saying that Eggers did a very good job with shadows and light and the darkness. And he does. He, to be able to recognize the sun setting from the background is like something he did on purpose. So, yeah, that was very cool. Yeah,
it's hard to do. I know it's a light trick, but, it's hard to make people notice that. Because I remember watching and I was looking at you like, the light. Ah! You know what I mean? I don't like the jump scares, once again, but that was actually a good one. So, yeah, man, Thomas gets bit. He tries to escape, and he, jumps out of a window of the castle eventually, as if he could. I don't know why he didn't do that the first time. But, he jumps out the window, lands in a river, and, ends up floating downstream. He ends up getting saved by these nuns. The nuns, pray over him and, bring a priest in there to, molest him and, skeet on him and then throw holy water on him. You know what I mean? Holy cum. I mean, you know what I mean? So, yeah, Thomas gets saved. And the priests are like, you need to stay. And he's like, no, I need to get back to my Ellen. And so he's going to go after her. He wants her, something like that. And so, yeah, he rolls off. I really like the nun scene. I like that scene because I really think the most terrifying stuff is stuff dealing with the devil and Satan and hell. And when you pair that with churches and nuns, to me, that's terrifying stuff. That's nightmare fuel for me. So, but what did you think about those scenes with Thomas in the nunnery?
Yeah, I mean, the way they also describe Nosferatu is that he's the devil, right? So, or he's death himself.
I think they gave a background story there too. He was brought back to life by the devil as a type of blasphemy against God.
I don't remember that.
I remember that, and I thought that was a cool background too. He was a man who challenged God and then died. The devil said, because you blasphemed against God so much, I'm going to give you the honor of living again to say another F you to God. You know what I mean? I thought that was a cool story. That's so metal.
Yeah. That's so punk.
That's very
That's
punk.
so metal. Anyway, but yeah, I like the nuns, I guess, or I liked the fact that Thomas finally escaped because we were rooting for you, Thomas, and you finally grew some balls. And I do like the nuns because it represents that untouchable thing that even the devil cannot reach, because these nuns are living right next door to Nosferatu.
Yeah. But they said he can't.
Chilling.
Yeah, they said he can't enter.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think okay, so I'll just say it. Here's my theory about the whole story. Is that I think Ellen's character represents those women who were abused when they were younger by either toxic men, or they could have been, raped or etc. And that they were not taken seriously by their families or the people around them, right? And then they have to somehow like just indulge in that, not indulge, but just simmer in that sadness and trauma. And then later in life, they show that with psychological disorders and different types of things. So I feel like that's what Ellen's character was.
Yeah. And
no one still believed in her. So maybe the nuns there represents the girls that didn't face any sort of trauma or any, sexual trauma, etc. And that's like what society says, like, look, if you're nice, if you're a good girl, nothing will happen to you.
Yeah, I could see that in the film because, like, while Thomas is, like, trying to escape from Nosferatu, right, Ellen is staying with, Harding and stuff, and she's, like, doing, wild things. Like, she's writhing on the bed, saying, he's coming, and, like, they end up calling this doctor over who ends up, like, strapping her down and, like, pumping her full of, like, ether to make her pass out because she keeps on, like, waking up in the middle of the night with these, like, wild screams and making these erotic noises and stuff like that. I think you can interpret that as, like, the film saying, like, there's trauma that people deal with and they view that as, like, a disorder, especially amongst women. But I think more poignantly, they're pointing at women's sexuality as somehow problematic or somehow devilish in a certain way. Because I don't think it's a mistake that this film, shows Ellen, writhing on the bed all the time and, like, convulsing on the beach like she's having sex, like a massive orgasm by just walking along the shore. You know what I mean? I think, the film isn't trying to say that, as in, that's not Roger Eggers' view, but it's like women's sexuality is somehow devious in the minds of conventional society. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's just how I interpreted the movie. I'm not saying that's the theme. But exactly like how you said, like, if a woman is sexually liberated, especially, people say, oh, she deserved it. She had it coming because she wore that dress at night. Right. So, or if women have, like, toxic men in their lives, people say, oh, like, you are the one who's dating the toxic man. It's your fault that you got abused, that you got raped, or you got, whatever. Yeah. So, and I feel like with that scene, I just wanted to point out, like, what nuns represented that for me there. Which was, like, the good girl that doesn't get anything bad happen to her, and people point at her and say, this is what you should be. I got you. But amongst the nuns, there's always Sister Emmanuel. Yeah. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we watched this movie about these nuns where a prostitute comes to live amongst them, and she causes a bunch of havoc. It's a great Italian film from, like, the 1970s. Anyway, we might review that in the future. But this is essentially, like, the part of the film where it kind of got weak for me. All right, so essentially, Thomas, like, escapes. We don't really see that yet. We're seeing, like, what's happening with Ellen in Germany, right? And she's, like, having these things happen to her. And also at the same time, Harding finds out that, Thomas's boss has gone crazy. He was, like, caught killing donkeys, like, in this farm somewhere and, like, eating them. And Harding and this doctor who is taking care of Ellen go to this madhouse and find her Canuck, something like that. Yeah. The boss of Thomas, like, eating pigeons in a prison yard, talking about blood is what he desires, and I serve him, the master of the cursed devourance. He gives, like, this long speech called Devourance and stuff like that about how he serves him. And also earlier in the film, we saw that, her Canuck was, like, worshiping the devil, like, essentially, and, like, reading these old ancient scripts and sitting naked on pentagrams in his apartment. You know what I mean? I feel like the film fell apart a bit there because what happened with Knock was so quick.
You know, like they didn't really explain like how he got into the occult and how so quickly he was this respectable gentleman to this like crazed madman. You know what I mean? But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if his character was necessary. I guess because he was the one who sort of transported, Nosferatu. But I don't know, like, yeah, he's just a bit out there, a cursed soul that Nosferatu uses as like his right-hand man, but he doesn't really have any, value to him. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I guess it's like worshipping the devil. That's what it will get you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have that many thoughts about it.
Exactly, but that's the thing. You should, because he's such a central character. And I think that shows some of the faults of this film. Like, we should have just a big discussion about Nock for who he is and what he represents. And because he made the whole thing happen. But how did this guy come across, Nosferatu's teachings? Was he put under a spell? I mean, later on in the film, they inspect his house and they find this, like, book of the occult. But, like, how did he get that? Yeah. You know what I mean?
I mean, the way I interpreted the movie, like this woman's struggle story, right? Like last night I told you, Nock sort of, for me, represents the red pill guys. Because if Nosferatu is like the toxic masculinity, is the abusive men.
I mean, he is a toxic man that lives in Romania. Andrew Tate.
Yeah. Wow. That's hilarious. But, like, what... Okay, I forgot the name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. What is like the system of... What
patriarchy?
Is yes.
Wow.
I forgot it.
How did my feminist wife forget the word patriarchy?
Anyway, so if like Nosferatu is, toxic patriarchy, evil patriarchy, then what patriarchy really wants to do is have power constantly. It doesn't really care men being... manly or men abusing their wives or whatever. Those are just like the expenses that it goes to. So for me, like, Nock is like one of those red pill guys that actually thinks, being a manly man and being violent and being assertive matters.
Yeah.
And he's just being used as a tool to maintain power.
Yeah. I guess so. I mean, he is a tool, literally a tool, right? Because once, later on in the film, Nock meets Nosferatu, and Nosferatu basically gives him a bitch slap and says, shut the fuck up. I'm sick of your shit. I don't need you, right? So, like, Nosferatu turns him to the side, and yeah, I guess you could be like, he is the pawn of patriarchy to some degree, but I just feel like, once again, we have to, like, draw those things out. And I know my favorite film of all time is Divorce in Black, right? Because I can draw all these spider webs and make extra storylines. I know I could do that. And you could do that for Nosferatu, but it's annoying because, okay, Divorce in Black is a bad film with a very good premise. This is a great film, potentially, that turns into shallow premise. You get what I'm saying? And that's what I'm disappointed in, because like there's so much here to work with and you don't use it all, Okay. That's my thing.
I mean, I can see how you would feel like that. So I'm not judging.
Yeah.
It's just that something sparked while I was watching the movie, so it's stopped being themeless after that.
Yeah. So basically Ellen is starting to have all of these, wild, dreams, and she's like screaming and having sexual sounds and groans and moans coming out of her. And the doctor who's been treating her tells Harding, the guy who's taking care of Ellen for Thomas while he's away. The doctor says, I have an old professor who can give us some advice. But this professor, has been sort of laughed out of academia because he's into alchemy and witchcraft and astrology. So, this guy is played by Willem Dafoe. And I forgot his character's name. Oh, Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz. Okay, even the name is campy. And when Willem Dafoe pops up in the film, he sort of like saves the day to some degree. I love his character because he's this old professor who's just like living in this dusty apartment where he like reads these old books from like Plato and Socrates from 1,000 years ago and tries to decipher the numerology. And, he ends up coming along and being a central character on helping them understand Ellen. And when Albin von Franz goes and sees Ellen, he says, "Unchain her immediately and like stop giving her ether and treat her like a lady." You know what I'm saying? And he like, really starts to, help the story move along in a funny way. Willem Dafoe's the GOAT. But what did you think of, that scene, if anything?
Yeah, I loved his character as well. I mean, just because, the character is played by Willem Dafoe, it's, great. But also his character adds a quirkiness to the story. Mm-hmm. And also, like, it brings an emotional outlook to the story because he's, like, somewhat of a caring figure towards Ellen when everyone else is, like, think that she's a freak show. Mm-hmm. So I liked that, and he's, in my theory, he represents, like, the ally, I guess.
Yeah.
But... yeah, and he is an older guy, which is weird, according to my theory. Mm-hmm. Because, I feel like, older men are more ingrained in sexism mm-hmm. because that's what they've lived through and that's what they know. But also, like, some of the older men really respect their woman.
Yeah, but I think what Albin's thing is that he's been ostracized before. He used to have power, and then because he had these different ideas, he got laughed out of power. In Ellen's case, she's a woman so at this time, so she's powerless, and she gets laughed out immediately when she says any of these problems that she's having, right? Like, they would never just give, Albin ether and lock him up in a bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they would do that to Ellen. So he sympathizes with her, and I guess maybe he also acknowledges, like, his privileges, too.
Yeah, maybe he's our gay ally.
Maybe he's gay. No. That's another thing. I mean, Willem Dafoe is a funny dude. I mean, he might be,
Yeah.
He probably wrote, like, a whole background story on Albin von Franz. Like, he wrote, like, he really embodied this character.
Yeah. And, like, it also... I felt like the interaction with Friedrich mm-hmm. and Professor Albin, it was like giving, science versus spiritualism, because science or the scientists kind of make fun of spiritualists, mm-hmm. if that makes sense. But I feel like spiritualism has a place in our world. Mm-hmm. And while I don't believe in like astrology and, tarot cards and stuff like that, I like... sometimes I like reading about it, or I like sometimes the energy of it, if that makes sense. So, mm-hmm. It's maybe that part for me represented like a bit of that, war.
Yeah.
Between two disciplinaries.
Yeah, but even still the film, it's, of course that's there. Like, you notice it, but it's not in front of you, right? Like, they don't like make that a central theme. You know what I mean? Because Harding is the one who's, laughing about this and saying, you have this man who does alchemy in my house, and, he's not taking him seriously. You know what I mean? But, that's there, but it wasn't like, it could have been done more.
Yeah, it's not deep. Like, it's a reach that I'm pulling this out from that scene.
Yeah. But either way, we also find out that Nosferatu is on his way to Germany, right? He's coming for real. And he locks himself in a box on a boat to go to Germany, right? And he's on this ship, and while he's on this ship, some of the people on the boat start to get really sick, and like they're throwing up and stuff like that. And, some of them even start to die, and they start to really worry about what's happening. Meanwhile, also, Dr. Albin Eberhard von Franz, Willem Dafoe's character, does basically like a scientific alchemic exorcism on Ellen, right? Where he starts chanting over her and stuff like that, and she starts writhing on the bed and doing all this sexual stuff again, which I guess they paid Johnny Depp's daughter $1 million to do. Like, but yeah, she essentially, is possessed by the spirit of Nosferatu and said he's going to come and kill everybody. Any comments on any of those scenes?
I like before the demon scene with Ellen. I like the conversation she has with the professor, because once again, she's talking about her childhood where she used to see these dreams, and then one time her father found her naked, groaning again, I guess, and maybe she was 10 or something, and he sort of demonized her. He said, "Oh, it's a sin, you're a sinful girl," and stuff like that, which immediately made me think of those young girls who get abused or raped, or it could be one of their family members, older family members, and when the families find out about it, some families, they hide it, and they think it's the girl's fault and stuff like that.
Or girls or people, young boys and girls, get shamed for masturbating the first time or caught playing with themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what this is one of the parts where it sparked this theme for me. This was one of the points when she was talking about her childhood. Yeah. So yeah, for me, I like those little interactions where we get to know more of Ellen. Yeah. And I thought the whole demon scene where she started to be in trance and he was trying to get the demon out of her and stuff like that. I thought she did a good job. Yeah. Her facial expression, and we could see when the demon was in her and when it was out and stuff like that.
Yeah, I gotta say, I give Lily Rose Depp an A+ in body acting. You know what I mean? Her facial expressions, the way the tongue was rolling out of her mouth, eyes rolling back of her head, writhing back and forth on the bed. You know what I mean? Those are skills. That's Megan Thee Stallion's knees level. She makes it look easy. You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay.
But essentially, to fast forward a bit, Thomas arrives in the city essentially the same day that Nosferatu shows up in the city, right? And Nosferatu ends up killing everybody on the boat, and he brings the plague to the city. So when the boat crashes into the dock, all these rats escape and they start spreading, this disease that comes with Nosferatu. And Thomas shows up and he sees Ellen and he's trying to say I'm back for you. And also the doctor, Dr. Albin, Professor Albin, they explore Hernock's house and they find, this ancient codex from Nosferatu that tells the story about, the curse that Nosferatu has with the girl. What did you think about any of those scenes?
I like the fact that, Nosferatu brought a plague. He brought a curse with him, that he's so evil, everything around him dies and gets affected and stuff like that. And, so the family Ellen was staying with, the Hardings, right? They were saying, especially the wife Anna, she was saying she's just like this because her husband is gone. And no, she was cursed. And so when Thomas arrives back into the town, into their house, she's suddenly okay. And she's suddenly, she's still having the dreams and everything, but she's not bed bound and stuff like that. I'm girl, why did you make it seem like that? Because we know it wasn't that. Yeah. We know actually you were being fucked by this demon monster. Why are you doing this? So I was a bit, irritated there.
Yeah. I was irritated by the boat scene because there's this scene when one of the ship guys on the boat says, I'm going to get rid of this cursed disease. And he knows it's coming from this evil package that they're carrying, right? And so instead of letting the slaves that are definitely on this boat out, he says, I'm going to go kill this monster. And so, there's the scene when he goes down there and this jump scare is about to happen just builds this anxiety. And that was so annoying for me. And then the jump scare does happen when you expect it to happen. And I feel that just cheapens the movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think this part of the movie was a bit draggy because, yeah, it's like sort of also the professor trying to search for the meaning, of everything.
And just running around saying cockscrow.
Yeah.
During
cockscrow.
During the first cockscrow, he will disappear.
Yeah, and they like inspect this body of a man that doesn't have any blood in him anymore. Right. But still, like, no one believes this guy. Still, Harding is like, that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's kind of annoying that, like, no one is believing him, especially since Thomas is back and Thomas is telling them, I saw the freaking, monster.
Yeah. Well, Thomas is kind of, like, sick right now. So at this point in the film, he doesn't let people know, right? It's later on when he shows his friend, right, what happens, right? And so, basically, the plague starts spreading through the city. The doctor is like, telling the people they need to be prepared, they need to be worried and stuff like that. Thomas is recovering in bed, and late night, Nosferatu is in his new house that he bought on the hill, right? And he outreaches his hand, and this is one of the coolest scenes, by the way. This shadowy hand spreads over the city, goes to Ellen's house, and basically like meets up with her and tells her like, I know you love me, and she's like, I fucking hate you, bitch. No, bitch, I know you want this dick again. She's like, I'd rather die than have that dick again.
I abhor you.
Yeah, I abhor you. And so then he like slaps her and then says like, I'll give you 3 nights. On the first night I will spread the plague. On the second night I will kill everyone you love, and on the third night I'll kill you unless you say like I do, or something like that, right? Some deal like that. And so Ellen is now left with this choice. Like, she has 3 nights to eventually say yes to this guy, Nosferatu, who believes they're supposed to be together because they have this bond that began when she was this young virgin girl when they first interacted.
Yeah.
So what did you think of those scenes?
Yeah, I think like the fucked up part about that interaction is like, we kind of feel like Ellen wants to be with Nosferatu, but she's also loving her husband at the same time. So she's trying to do the right thing by not being with a demon. So it's like, yeah, I think it's like, okay, girl, now we don't know what you're going to do. Like, are you going to try to fight it, or are you going to give in? And I feel like, once again, going back to my theme, when we're faced with our abusers, when we're faced with like previous toxic partners that we had, I feel like most women might find this relatable, that we question ourselves like, do I want to be with this person again? Because we quickly forget all the bad shit that happened, right?
Yeah.
Or do I want to fight it and be with a nice guy?
Yeah. I mean, that scene definitely is just like situationship 101. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, your baby daddy shows up, but you got this new dude, and you like, damn, I still miss my baby daddy dick, but you know what I mean? I got a good dude.
And you can see like how, with this imagery, I feel like you can see how unequal the power balance is between an abuser and a victim.
Right. I mean, literally, because they make Nosferatu like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
Right.
There's that, and there's also like the fact that he's super scary and that he could kill anyone in a second, and that also he has just like this energetic pull on her,
yeah,
which is, I feel like, what most abusers have on their victims as well.
Yeah. Also, another thing happens as well, like Hernock, the crazy guy who is the servant to Nosferatu. Yeah, he like ends up breaking out of jail. They have him like tied up in this like metal contraption chair, but then he falls over and ends up biting the man's neck who tries to save him, and ends up escaping out into the streets as well. And also, Ellen is staying with her friend Anna and telling Anna how much of a friend she is and how much she loves her and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the doctor and Professor Albin are, continuing to, talk about this evil plague and spirit that Nosferatu brought into the city. There's a lot that happens at this point. For me, it's like, this point, because there was like this jump scare that happens with Anna. Like they do it so cheap. Like there's a scene when Anna walks out of her bedroom after kissing her kids goodnight, and like they show this like staircase that's in the dark, and then come back to Anna, and all that scares us is like Ellen looking really creepy standing behind her. I was like, that was so cheap. Like I'm so fucking annoyed by these stupid jump scares. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean at that point it's like also with the professor, he figured out what was happening, and he's saying like, you know, there's only one way we can, you know, defeat him and stuff like that. So he's figured it out, and we know we know Nosferatu is coming for Ellen and stuff like that. So at this point, we're just like seeing the evil that is like, you know, affecting the whole city.
Yeah, yeah. So, Anna, who had previously said, like, oh, Ellen, you're just making this all up. It's in your head and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Ellen wakes up the night after, like, Nosferatu says he's going to, like, torture her and kill everybody she loves unless she marries him. You know, Ellen wakes up to find Anna, like, getting eaten by rats. And even that is sexual because she's, like, moaning a bit. She's like, you know what I mean? And so then Ellen is now infected with, like, the plague and stuff like that. And, she's sick in bed. And then, you know, other people in the city are, like, getting infected, and, like, many people are dying and stuff like that. I like those scenes when they show, like, the hospital and, like, how everything is, like, spreading and stuff. Anna wakes up the next night, though, and sees, like, you know, her children are, like, screaming for help. And also, like, her husband won't wake up. There's a scene when, you know, Anna goes into the bedroom and sees Nosferatu, like, killing her kids, like, eating her children, and then, like, drops one to the ground and then, like, kills her too. I thought that was such a sick scene. I know I skipped something because there was that scene when Harding got into a fight with Ellen and told her to get the fuck out of his house. Yeah. But I just wanted to jump there because I really like that scene, and I know you have a lot to say about the Harding and Ellen scene when they fight.
Why?
Because that one is pretty much like, you know, feminist versus toxic man too.
Yeah, a little bit, because it was like...
But first talk about the scene when Anna sees her kids getting killed and like the plague happening through the city, because I like the drama. I like the drama.
Yeah, we do like the drama. Yeah, you know, we love to see the hospitals are filled with like dying people. Yeah. And stuff. And yeah, I agree with you. Like that scene when Nosferatu is holding like the kid in his hand because he's so big and the kid is so small. Yeah. So it almost looks like a doll. Yeah. You know, in his hand. And
the thing is, like, in movies, you rarely see kids get killed.
Yeah, like it's like a very, like, bad way of dying.
Yeah, it's a horrible way.
It looks very bad.
And the thing is, like, the kids were the entire time, from the beginning of the film, saying, there is a monster, motherfucker. Yeah.
It's like, you don't even actually see the blood on the kid. We don't even see, like, the kid's throat snapped or something like that. We see the shadow of the kid's body dangling. Yeah. So that's what it makes it, like, scary.
Yeah, that's what... I think that was the genius of the first Nosferatu film. Granted, I haven't seen it, but, you know, David Eggers does a good job. Robert Eggers. I don't know why I call him David. Bob does a good job of making this film scary with shadows. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was, like, an excellent scene. And also, like, when he turns to Anna, it's like Anna is so scared and also at the same time horrified because her kid just died like that. And that I think she knows, like, the death is coming for her. Like, we don't even hear her scream. Yeah. You know? So I thought that was, like, pretty powerful. Yeah. The way, like, they just captured that... like fear. Yeah. That's the thing. I feel like this movie it didn't have to be jump scary because Nosferatu's energy is scary enough. And like just doing like the evil demon jump scares, and that's, oh god, the scene with the staircase really pisses me off a lot. That cheapens this movie that actually has so much going for it, you know, and a little bit more could have been added to make it a bit deeper. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But about the scene with Harding, he basically tells Anna, like, bitch, get the step in. Like, you got my wife tripping. You've brought nothing but drama since you've been in my house. I'm just a guy. I'm just your husband's friend, really. I don't even like you. Or at least Ellen says, you've never liked me. And I was thinking Harding was going to say, you're damn right. But what do you think of that scene, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I thought that also was part of, like, the toxic patriarchy, because like there's this woman who's suffering, and you try to first like silence her suffering, I guess, by like hiring that doctor that gave her ether and stuff like that. And and she's telling you constantly like what will happen, or that, you know, you should protect yourself and stuff like that. And when the shit does happen, you just decide to kick her out. And like, you know, I felt like even though like that guy was a good husband, seeing his interaction with another woman, I was like, oh, there's like the 1830s
man. There's that 1830s man. I know it's in there.
Yeah,
but he was still kind of respectful. Like, he was saying, in fact, I sympathize with him and understand him, because the only thing maybe he did wrong was like chain her up. But, you know, granted, that was the medicine at the time. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they did. They chained people up, right? They chained up millions of people.
Oh, so it's okay to kick your sick best friend with his wife?
Kick him out? I mean, technically, you know, he's a man. Like, he should be taking care of his wife. You know what I mean?
But he's sick.
I get you, but if I had a friend, right? Like, let's say my best friend came here with his girl, and then a whole bunch of drama started to happen. At a certain point, you're going to be telling me, Simon, they got to go. I know you're going to be telling me that.
I mean, yeah, but it's like, it wasn't like it was their fault. Like, they weren't the ones who were causing the drama. The bitch is cursed.
Okay.
She can't do anything about it. And the husband is even, like, less, you know, guilty.
Okay. Well, just going forward in the film, essentially, you know, what happens, you know, Thomas gets a bit better, if I remember right.
I mean, they kicked them out.
Yeah, they kicked them out the house.
He has to get better.
He has to get better. And there's this scene when Thomas and Ellen, you know, Ellen essentially tells the story about what happened, you know, a long time ago before our wedding nights. You know, I had this interaction with this demon, right? And Ellen sort of like taunts him by saying, like, you know, you could never do me like how he does me. So then they have this like wild sex scene on the couch, right? But then she also goes demon mode on him, and then he gets scared, but then he continues to hit it. That happened. And I think, you know, Thomas decides right then and there, like, I'm gonna get my wife back. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna be honest, at that point, I would have divorced the bitch. I would have said, nah, this is too much. She is wild. She is wild. But essentially, like, they have this sex scene that happens, and Thomas says, you know, I'm gonna do this once and for all. I'm gonna kill Nosferatu tomorrow at night.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
That made no sense. He said, tomorrow night, we're going to go kill him. Like, bruh, it's 6 a.m. right now. You have a full 12 hours.
Yeah, and plus, he's not active.
Yeah. Like, handle your business.
Yeah, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Right. There's also a scene with, like, her knock, like, trying to, like, get in Nosferatu's favors, blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares about that. What did you think of the sex scene with Ellen and Thomas?
I like that because, once again, for me, it represented, like, okay, there was this woman, you know, who got abused, and then she was not taken seriously, so, yeah, she was abused, but she found a nice guy that she was with, I guess, and, you know, because of her past trauma, we see these women as, like, toxic now. And, you know, she sort of was reflecting her toxicness onto that nice guy, I guess.
No.
Which was driving him crazy, and it made him do like something abusive, I guess.
Yeah.
Which was not that abusive because I feel like they both enjoyed sex there.
I don't think he enjoyed it. It was more like a reasserting dominance type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, of course he's gonna bust that nut, but it's not like a nut. It's like
nut.
I
mean, sometimes as a woman, I feel like every guy wants to be very dominant, that manly man, that toxic man, but they just aren't. But deep down inside, it's like a guilty want.
I don't think it would be a guilty want in 1830 because Thomas definitely could do that.
I'm saying generally.
In 2025, yes, maybe for some men. In 1825, what you mean? Come here so I can slap you real quick. That's like a man. Like that's that shit. Like, hey, woman. I'm sorry, that's not funny, but it's like. Why would Thomas want that? That's just a wild take you have. Because Thomas could do that anytime.
I feel like that's what Thomas represents today.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not saying that's what Thomas is in the movie.
I got you.
But yeah, I feel like most guys want that persona in the back of their minds, but they just don't do it. Either it's not in their personality or they just want to be like PC or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's... And it comes out like during sexual activities most of the time. Cause that's when we're like, we release certain, pressures.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, Thomas, but I don't see that scene that way. Thomas didn't want to be, he was trying to get his wife back. This whole movie is about this guy who's getting cucked to the ultimate degree. Like, you're getting fucked by a guy with a big black vampire cock. Like, you know what I mean?
He did not have a big dick.
Whatever. He was getting cucked. Like, I can't fight him. I can't kill him. And he's taller than me. He's like fucking, he can transport across seas and oceans as a fucking vampire hand. Like, what am I doing? How the movie ends, spoiler alert, he ends up fucking his wife and walks in right in. Like, this entire movie is Nicholas Hoult getting fucking cucked to the ultimate degree.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Saying like, if your girlfriend or your partner is obsessed with their ex,
let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
You're not gonna.
That's the story, the moral of this movie.
You're just renting the house. You don't own the house.
You're renting that pussy.
Yeah.
That pussy's for the streets. So yeah, man.
No.
Ellen's not for the streets.
Yeah.
But she's for hell.
Yeah. She loves that demon cock.
She loves demon cock. Demon dick.
This is going to be bad.
This will definitely... Anyway, there was a scene I really liked. I really liked the scene... This sounds bad, too. When Harding's family dies. And they have the funeral. And they have the little coffins. And then the big coffin. I don't know. I thought that scene was cool.
Yeah.
And then, like, how Harding sees, like... all of his friends were there to like support him, and then like as soon as he sees Ellen, he says, "Fuck you, bitch! You did this shit to me. You killed my fucking family." I like that. And the way they shot this movie, the dialogue is like 18th century curse words. You know what I mean? He's like, "You harlot."
But I noticed that they say "man" a lot. They say, "Damn, man."
Damn, man. Oh, they also say "pray" a lot too. Like, "Pray,
but
I don't
feel
bother
like
you."
"Man" is such a modern, lingo.
I don't know. I didn't hear "man" a lot. I heard a lot of "I doth detest" and like stuff like that. Shant. Yeah, shit like that. Needn't. Yes, but it was hilarious because Harding was at the point where he was about to slap Ellen in front of Thomas.
I mean. Yeah, that's when I was like, I understood Harding because he lost all his family, right? So I was like, okay, I get you. Like, if someone, killed you and then showed up to the funeral, I'd be like...
But they didn't kill. He didn't. Yeah. She didn't do it exactly. But it would have been hilarious if Harding like just cocked back his hand and just went full on Ellen right in front of her husband. Like that would have been hilarious in 18th century gear.
Yeah, and I feel like Thomas would have let that happen
because he's cucked. He's cucked.
Like he's already down. So yeah.
But no, like Thomas ends up opening his shirt and says, "It's real. See, it's not bullshit what my wife is saying." Which I think one of the themes of this movie is like when a woman says something, people don't believe it. When a man says something, people take it seriously. Because the same thing with the professor happened earlier. He said she's possessed by a demon, and everybody said, "Oh." And Thomas has to show Thomas, hey, I think there's a Bible reference. There's a biblical reference there because there was Thomas. So Jesus, when he was killed on the cross and he was born again, the disciples saw it, and all of them saw it except Thomas. And Thomas said, "I'll only believe it if I can actually see it." And so Jesus appears and says, "Here, Thomas, put your fingers in my holes where they poked me with a spear." Because do you remember Jesus got poked with the spear on the cross?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I just caught that right now.
Okay.
I don't know if that was Thomas or Simon that said that, one of the disciples. But either way. I just caught that. Yeah. Anyway, Thomas ends up showing his chest to Harding, and then Harding says, "Oh, okay, I believe you now."
Yeah, but that scene was good because then we see like Harding go into the, I don't know, mausoleum of his family. Yeah. And like he's loving on the coffins. He's saying like, "Oh, your coffin is so small. I don't know what I'm gonna do without you." And then like he fucks his wife also.
He didn't fuck his wife, yo.
The way they found him. The way they fucked his wife.
He did not fuck his dead wife.
Yes, he did.
He kissed her because he was sick with the plague.
But no, when they find him, his wife's leg is on him. What type of position is that? That's missionary.
You are insane. That's the wildest take I've ever heard. I did not.
You can see it now.
I have a sick, twisted mind, but my mind didn't go there. Like he fucked his wife.
He did, because remember, like he couldn't keep his hands off his
That's
wife.
very true. He is very horny.
Yeah,
he is insanely horny. So now that you say it like that, maybe he did fuck his dead wife.
He did, and you will see it now. But we will keep on continuing.
Yo, if they found him with his pants down, I feel like the reactions would have been different because they opened the mausoleum and nobody said, "Ugh, brother, ugh." They just.
But look, we're watching the movie right now, and it's the scene. So let's see if it's true.
But Thomas,
look at the leg.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, okay.
Her legs are spread out.
Okay.
And he is standing in the middle, like in missionary.
Okay. I can see it, but I just feel like Thomas's reaction, he's making the reaction of a man who is like, "I don't understand what this position is." I don't know what's happening.
Because Thomas's wife pleases herself.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, no.
With vampire
I mean, Thomas just like lived through Orlok, so maybe he's not that shocked.
He's not shocked anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, now I see it. Maybe I didn't see that the first time, but I like that scene when Harding is like, kissing on his dead wife, because what I like about Bob Eggers, right, is that he's able to do things in films that other directors are scared to do. Like in The Northman, like there was like real rape scenes and stuff like that, and like kids getting killed, and like in this one you have necrophilia, you have latent pedophilia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's I like that part.
Me too.
Yeah?
I like that scene, yeah.
Anyway, going to like the climax of the film, essentially like now Thomas gets some full on balls to run. Go ahead.
Wait, there's that scene that I really like.
Go ahead.
Before we go there. So basically, after the funeral, they go and they have this carriage ride with like all of them, right? The professor, the other doctor, Thomas, Harding. Ellen, and Harding.
Yeah.
And Harding is like out of his mind because he just buried his family, and the other ones are talking. They're trying to. Like they're basically saying that the professor says, okay, we need to like catch him at night right before the sun comes up.
By the cock's crow,
yes. So yeah, and they're like trying to find a way to like basically stall him during that time, and they make a plan, but then they drop off Professor, and Ellen says like, "Can I walk with you?" And then the professor and Ellen make their little plan where basically the professor says, you know that you have to do this, right? It's not your husband that's gonna, save and kill Nosferatu. It's you.
Yeah.
And he basically gives like this pep talk saying like to her that in another lifetime you could be the empress or you could be, the queen, but unfortunately in this lifetime, like you have to find, your own salvation and you will bring us salvation or something like that.
Yeah.
And I really like that scene because once again, going back to my theme of like women being abused, we've always been the life providers on this planet. We give birth and we create life. Plus, throughout the history, there have been times where like we were the Amazonian woman, and we had Cleopatra and stuff like that, where we were the rulers of certain places around the world. So yeah, and then the way he said like you are still our salvation. It's like it's still the same, even though a lot of women are abused in the society. We are the salvation because we still give life to children, we still make a lot of things possible and create life. So for me, that was like a really emotional and enlightening scene. Maybe it's not for everyone, but just because I had this theme going on in my mind, that was like, oh, like that's so cute and true.
Yeah. I mean, that scene didn't really like resonate with me because like, I don't know, man. Like at this point I was just like, getting ready for that, that final climax, I thought it was going to be a major fight scene between Thomas and Nosferatu because it felt like, because the movie had been so typical up to this point, with jump scares and everything, you expect that final monster fight scene, not monster fuck scene, which is what it becomes. Because essentially, Thomas, Harding, and the doctor go into Nosferatu's mansion at night. Why? And they actually, it's not Thomas, it's not Harding because Harding is dead.
Harding dies later.
Yeah, it's Professor. It's the wild professor, the doctor, and Thomas. They run into Nosferatu's house. They go to the place where they think he's at. They find it's full of rats. They open up the coffin, stab who's in it. It turns out to be Hernock. Hernock says, I wanted to be the king of the rats, blah, 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 blah. He dies. And essentially we see this creeping shadow hand up in Ellen's house open the door with the shadow, which was really cool. And we see Ellen dressed up like a bride. And she says, I do. Like she's willing to accept being Nosferatu's bride. And so, they stand in front of each other. They kiss. Ellen lays down on the bed naked. Nosferatu gets on top of her and essentially bites her on the titty and begins to suck all the blood out of her and keeps on sucking and sucking. The sun is rising. Nosferatu looks up and sees the sun, and Ellen says, more, more. And so he continues to suck the blood out of her. And then when the sun fully hits him, he is now gonna die, and he starts screaming. His eyes start bleeding blood, and he essentially dies on top of Ellen. She has all the blood sucked out of her, and at the same time Nosferatu dies, Thomas walks into the room, sees her dead, and the last lines of the film go to Willem Dafoe, who says the end of the prophecy is that by the first cock's crow, she will lay with him until the sun makes them both live in another world or something like that. And he covers her with lilacs and flowers. And Willem Dafoe ends up staring out the window with a cross shadow put up on his cheek.
And we could see his face from the mirror.
Yeah, so you can see his face from the mirror with a cross on his cheek. And the last thing we see is this aerial view of Nosferatu in post-nut sleep on top of Ellen. What did you think of the climax? You can laugh. It's okay to laugh.
I know I can laugh. I'm just smiling. That's an insane description of the last scene. Anyway, once again, I said Hernock represents the red pill guys, and we find out that Nosferatu doesn't really give a fuck about him. Mm-hmm. And he's killed, but when he says all he cares about is his princess or something, then, Thomas starts to run back, but of course it's too late. I like the last scene. I like the gross making love scene, I guess. It's not really making love because they are not supposed to have sex. He's just sucking her blood. But it was very sexual, the way they did it. And, I think, like, depending on my theme, it's kind of saying the thirst patriarchy has for power, for destroying women and destroying everything along the way will eventually kill them. Because they wouldn't be able to stop, and then everything will just like rot in their hands, so it's sort of giving me that message at the ending from my own theme that I created for this movie. But I like the ending shots of like Ellen and Nosferatu like in the bed with lilacs, especially like when when we first see Ellen with lilacs, she gets mad at Thomas for saying, "Why did you kill these flowers?" But now everything on the bed is dead because those flowers are dead too.
I thought she was talking to Nosferatu then, because at the beginning of the film, like, she's saying messages, to the window. Like, she's looking out the window by herself and saying, like, "You're going to come soon and we'll be together." You know what I mean? Like, the beginning of the film, there's that. It seems like she's talking to him from afar. So I thought she was talking about the lilacs, like Nosferatu killed them. You know what I mean? At the beginning.
Okay.
That was my opinion, though.
I didn't get it like that, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, I actually liked the ending. I wasn't expecting a fight scene. I mean, I was, but I also am glad, like, it didn't happen, because I honestly like this better.
Yeah, I mean, this literally makes me think of, like, the Snoop Dogg line, "Ain't no pussy good enough to get burnt while I'm up in it." You know what I mean? Like, Nosferatu definitely needs to listen to Nothing But a G Thing. You know what I mean? He needs some, pee in his life. You feel me? Somebody need to pop his collar and tell him that these hoes ain't worth $1. I'm sorry. But this is like, incel getting burnt. I like the last scene, a lot, because this film is visually stunning. I'm not taking away from the film's aesthetics, but the film's actual story is shallow in its depth. Now, I imagine that the sequel will be that Thomas is the new Nosferatu, because even though he was cured somewhat, he was still bit by the vampire.
There's a sequel to this?
I would imagine. I'm just throwing this out there, right? Thomas is now the new Nosferatu because he had his love taken away. He's bit by the vampire. The real Nosferatu is dead, so maybe that spirit will embody him. You know what I mean? That's what I would imagine would happen, which I think can go to show, like, toxic love begets toxic love. When you're in these love triangles, somebody gets hurt and ends up becoming another toxic person to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, when you have relationship trauma, once you're in another relationship, you reflect that trauma.
And he's got a ton of baggage.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he's going to live for 1,000 years. So it's going
to be... And, like, the way, like, his wife just, like, left him... It was insane. Yeah. Like, he just walked in with her having sex with a monster, I guess. Like, but not really having sex.
Yeah.
But, and also, even though I didn't see the old Nosferatu, I know, like, what the monster looks like. And I felt like with the makeup or the whole decoration of this Nosferatu, I feel like there is a glance at the old one, but the old one is obviously like very cringe now. So yeah, but I feel like there's some similarity, which is cool. Like they paid, homage to that one.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the new and improved one. You know what I mean? Like this one is definitely inspired by like, modern horror, like Alien, like. It's giving very, like, CGI, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And the original one was just like a bald guy who just happened to have very long fingers. You know what I mean? Which was creepy. I mean,
it was just like very, amateur makeup. And costumes, prosthetics.
But overall, man, for me, I give this film I'm gonna give it, man, a 7, maybe a light 6.5 to 7, somewhere in between 6.5 and 7, because I just feel like, you know, it's stylistically good, but it just lacks something, right? And also I have to say, like, Bob Eggers has, like, no black people in this film. Like, there have been more black presidents than there have been black people in a Robert Eggers film. And I know you're going to point out, oh, the dock worker was there. Yeah. I didn't even know the dock worker was in the movie. Did you?
No.
I didn't.
I was going to say that. Like, I mean, just to, you know, shout him out.
Dog. Like, you know, Robert Eggers could do, like, a great film on, like, maybe, like, an old African kingdom with his certain aesthetic. I don't know, like the Dahomey or something like that. But, like, I think, yeah, man, this film is, like, just surface level, you know? It's very surface level for me, if you just think about it.
Okay. I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
I like this movie, and I like you said, like the style, the cinematography, the light play, the shadow play. I thought those were really cool. And, yeah, overall, I was able to find a theme in it that related to me. And I feel like even if I didn't find a theme, because it's such a classic story, I don't think it needs to be that deep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like, you know, it's just one of those stories like Cinderella or whatever.
I get you.
So, yeah, it already has a theme because it's such a classic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I actually enjoyed it. I loved the acting. Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're looking for a good horror movie, I would definitely suggest this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad horror movie, and, like, you know,
it's not that scary. By the way,
I think it is scary with some of those jump scares, and also Nosferatu is scary, right? I just feel like, you know, this is a notch above, like, the standard typical. All right, think of one word and put the in front of it, and you have a horror movie.
What do you mean?
Think of one noun and put the in front of it, and you have a horror movie. Think of any.
The Cloud.
The Cloud.
Okay.
Stacey Dash in The Cloud. They like the guitar. Like, that's how you make a horror movie. Like, those are standard, typical, run of the mill. You know, 10 of those come out every year.
Yeah.
This is a bit above that.
Okay.
But it uses the same standard tricks and themes and, like, you know, to make it scary.
I don't think it has that many standard tricks.
Bruh, like...
No?
Just
like, the jump scares.
The jump scares, like, absolutely jump scares. And, like, you know... Yeah. And, like, you throw in, like, a naked, pale, skinny white woman in there to make it seem avant-garde. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's why I had judgment towards it. But, you know... I mean, I actually enjoyed it. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll agree to disagree. I would say you're not wrong to skip it. Would you suggest it? All right, skip or suggest?
I feel like if you wanted to watch something vampire related and horror, this is the movie you can watch. Because, like, what other vampire movie is actually good?
There are some.
Like what?
There's that Brad Pitt movie with Tom Cruise.
Interview with the Vampire? Yeah. I didn't see that.
Okay, that's a good movie. And that deals with, like, some deep themes. Like, you know, it's like, imagine a vampire living through, like, slavery. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's an interesting take. You know what I mean?
Okay. I mean, that is an interesting take. I didn't see that movie. But I liked it. I would recommend it to someone who wanted to see a horror movie right now. Like, I would say, yeah, you can just go watch Nosferatu. Because I feel like, in general, it would appeal to most people's taste. Yeah,
it's a smarter horror movie.
Yeah.
It's a smarter horror movie, but it still lacks a lot of depth that most...
Last night you said this is the best Netflix and chill movie.
It is a great Netflix and chill movie because overall women like to look at, you know, generally good-looking white men in 19th century clothes, because as much as women say they don't want to go back into the past, they love to fantasize about it.
Okay, I'm going to correct something. This is for all the guys who are listening. As a woman, I get turned on more by Lily Rose Depp's, he's coming, than looking at Dustin Hoffman. Who is he? Nicholas Hoffman.
That's Benedict Cumberbatch.
Nicholas Hoult. Like, I did not get turned on by Nicholas Hoult, nor Nosferatu. I just get turned on by the fact that another woman is getting turned on.
Then can you explain why women love Bridgerton, why women love The Crown, why women love, what's it called? The movie, the thing with Cillian Murphy.
Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, women love
Peaky Blinders is hot.
Okay, exactly. See, women like old people. They like people dressed up in multiple layers.
I don't know if this is true for this movie because I didn't like anything Ellen was wearing.
I'm talking about the men. Because it's not about women. I'm talking about the women just like, they like when people, like, they like Pride and Prejudice aesthetic.
You got it all wrong. With those old types of movie aesthetics, I like what women wear, not men. I don't find what men wear hot. Peaky Blinders is different because it's not the same century. Peaky Blinders is Irish gangster.
That's a place. It's not about century.
Yeah, yes, but it's like the Irish gangster aesthetic. It's not Victorian aesthetic.
I swear to God, if Cillian Murphy is not Irish, that's insane. But go ahead.
Anyway, so that's the difference. I like the
Cillian Murphy is Irish, by the way.
Okay, I like the woman's outfits in older movies, in like Victorian movies, I guess. And yeah, not the men's clothing does not turn me on. Men unclothing.
It's pronounced Killian, by the way.
Anyway, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Killian. Sorry.
I was tripping.
Go ahead. We can end this podcast.
Okay, are you pissed off? You good?
No, I'm not pissed off.
I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it, like getting back and doing these movie reviews with you.
We're a bit rusty. I feel like we're a bit old.
We're also lit as hell and tired as hell, at least for me on my end. But I enjoyed doing this. I enjoyed talking with you. I hope y'all enjoyed this conversation as well.
Oh, and by the way, like it's Black History Month, right?
Yeah, it's Black History Month, so we're gonna be doing some Black History films. I promise. Maybe we'll review this new Aaron Pierre documentary about MLK and Malcolm X. You want to do that?
Yeah, sure, we can do it. I mean, sorry that we started off the Black History Month with one of the whitest movies we've seen. This
is literally like Bob Eggers has as many black people as an Abercrombie and Fitch ad has. Like he has as many black people as are at a Jelly Roll concert.
This was, I mean, our intention was to review this, earlier, but yeah, we will be reviewing a lot of black movies this month. We're gonna
try. School is starting this month. Work is kicking back up in the gear this month. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna try to do some more movies. But yeah, definitely looking forward to watching some Black History movies that I haven't seen.
Yeah. Also, if people have any suggestions of, maybe your favorite black movie.
Black history movies. You can't just be sending like Mami Watatu. No.
So Booty Call doesn't make the cut.
Booty Call, we might still do it because we saw it, but it has to be a Black history film.
Why?
The story of Coretta Scott King's knees, like, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It has to be a historical movie about some shit that happened. All right. But yeah, I enjoyed this. Shout out to Nosferatu. 6.5 out of 10 for me. 8 for Akdi.
Yeah.
8.5?
8.
8? Okay. All right. So, we'll wrap this up. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the rebound. If you have a film you want us to review, put it in the comments section. And be easy out there. Peace.